Hello and welcome to another episode of Monte's Matchups. Today we'll be looking at the Stage 1 Week 2 matchup that we're going to be seeing between the Paris Eternal and the Los Angeles Gladiators. Now, interestingly, the Gladiators are coming into this part of the season down at a 1-1 record. I originally placed this team to be top 5 and 5th place in my power rankings, so it was a bit of a surprise that they lost actually to the Seoul Dynasty in the first week of competition. However, they made that right back up by taking down what I thought was the top ranked team in the league, the San Francisco Shock, in a very exciting match that really went the distance all the way through map 5.
Pointing, that's the point. That's where we need to win the fight. Get on it. May not be enough though for the Shock. Too good here on the Gladiator side of things. Rascal is gone and it's spinning out of control. The Gladiators will succeed at the end on home turf. 3-2 victory.
A well-fought match from San Francisco Shock. Made a lot of changes at their deep roster. Not quite enough there towards the end. The Gladiators have this great style, which is so passive, and then they find a single target, solo them out, and call it with big groups moving people around, or when he's on Primal Rage Winston. They've done such a great job. It must be so frustrating to play against.
So what do we make of the LA Gladiators? They're a team that is not going to be able to use one of their biggest signings of the offseason, which is the player Decay, who was quite clearly one of the hottest prospects. A lot of teams were trying to get Decay on their roster. Gladiators managed the signing, but he will not turn 18 until next week. So they're still going to be down potentially one of their most valuable players. Also, they are not going to be able to use Ripa for 3 more games because he is currently serving a 5-game suspension. The Gladiators, however, did a very impressive job after bouncing back from their loss to the Seoul Dynasty, but we really don't know how consistent this team is going to be with, of course, any roster, but the roster that they have right now, the players that are currently of age and unsuspended to work with. I found it very odd that they lost to the Seoul Dynasty. They looked a little bit flustered and uncoordinated. I think they had a chance, some very good chances to win that map, especially if you consider the ending of Route 66, where they came in to the time bank push with some pretty big ultimate advantages on defense that they played overly aggressively with, and then ended up losing that match and not being able to force that game 5, which would have given them a chance to win the series.
Don't leave the payload as overtime has begun. They need to stick to it like glue. Just keep one player there, that's fine, but if that one player leaves, that overtime bar is going to disappear very quickly. The longer you stay on the payload, the longer overtime goes, the quicker the bar will dissipate if no one is present. Fisher, you know he's not swinging, he's looking for an Earth Shatter. He almost goes down though. He gets to stay alive. He knows he needs to get rid of hydration. Great Discord Orb placement by J-Hong. They got the Brigitte early on. Fisher receives one of his own, so he just charges out there. He says, I don't want to be a part of this. Man, Seoul are not having to use ultimates in this fight. They're not being forced to invest heavily.
No. Just Transcendence in their rally.
See how the Gladiators set up. Oh, the tension, I can feel it. Shaz sitting right at the back. Can't afford to give up his life. If he somehow gets a Transcendence in this fight, it would be huge. Fisher looking for the shatter here. He is booped up vertically, and that's an opportunity, but still he gets the reverse shatter. Just when the Gladiators thought they could push in to get the job done, he gets the Earth Shatter, and the Gladiators were not shielded. They were not ready for Fisher to turn around like that. And on that note, the Seoul Dynasty start the 2019 Overwatch League season with a nail-biter victory over the hometown heroes, the Los Angeles Gladiators. And you're right, Matt, it came down to a shatter-off between Fisher and Raw.
And I tell you what, Raw got a pretty good one off. It was a really...
That said, the Gladiators have looked really impressive in some ways, and I think we saw that stand out in their match against the Shock. The Gladiators have always been a team that's been very comfortable using Sombra because they used it so heavily last season. And so when it comes to getting the big EMPs, setting up around Sombra hacks, this team is still really excellent.
I mean, the worst part about that fight for Seoul Dynasty is that the Gladiators don't use any of their ults, right? I mean, you make those switches, you don't gain really a ton of ult progress, so you're on outside of Fissure, but you're not forcing them to use any ult, so you can't kind of swap that ultimate economy game in your team's favor.
Obviously, BMP is going to be massive. Trying to play up on the high ground. Here's that EMP. Fisher could not do anything yet again. 2 maps in a row, he's been targeted and pretty much taken down. The Gladiators say, yeah, we know you very well, Fisher. We know how you tick. We know how you tilt.
And that was one of the big factors that propelled them to victory when they played the Shock. But the other factor is really their support line. I know I bagged on Big Goose quite a bit last season, saying he was the worst player on the roster in the Mercy meta that dominated most of Overwatch League in the inaugural season, but you really have to respect this guy's Lucio and his playmaking abilities as we come into this next week. He currently leads the league in Lucio players on environmental kills with 11, and some of these kills have been incredibly impactful to winning team fights, building up a bunch of percent or moving the payload, and so any map that allows him to get these environmental kills, he is going to be a massive risk. Look at Ilios Well, for example, and what he's been able to do on that point on control.
In favor of the Gladiators, we can take a look at it from.
Look at this rollout right at Lucio. Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh,
there you go.
Oh, I need a shower.
Also, Shaz, I talked about it on the broadcast, but he really is one of the most balanced flex support players in the league. On the Zenyatta, he typically finds that sweet spot between dealing damage and healing, and so overall, their support play has been some of the best in the league, and that has really helped propel them to victory. Roar has also been pretty good on the Reinhardt overall and pretty solid. Certainly, he's no big playmaker like Fissure, like we saw last season, but we'll give him a few more games to really see his potential. But overall, he's been pretty solid. Gladiators look like they're pretty adaptable, both in terms of compositions and when it comes to how they play out GOATs and other metas. So I think we will probably see a Gladiators win here, but I don't think we can totally discount Paris considering how strong they are at playing GOATs. When Paris came in, obviously they started off in their one match that we've seen with a victory over the London Spitfire, and the most important thing is that these guys look so solid when it comes to GOATs. And a lot of that is because they have many European players who have been in this meta for a long time. A lot of their coaches have been coaching this meta for a long time. And as long as you're better at GOATs in this meta, you really don't have to play anything else, right? Because you're always going to have that ult advantage if the other team switches to GOATs. You want the mirror in a lot of ways if you're confident in it. And if you can play around some crazy strats, then and keep on GOATs, then you're going to have a pretty good winning formula. And we really saw that when they played against the London Spitfire. One of the big reasons they were able to take that win is that after Guard came in and London won King's Row by using some great Sombra flanks and EMPs, they adapted very quickly. So by the final map in the series, when Guard came back in, you can really see the way that Paris is playing around him. Cruz is now playing the flank. Cruz is typically a very aggressive Lucio player, but he's starting to play on the side, and he's trying to really force Guard out. If he shows up, he's getting booped, he's getting tagged, and losing that cloak while he's on those flanks, especially by the diva play as well. So expect Paris to not change the composition necessarily, but to change how they play the composition, to change their positioning heading into the match if we're going to see any curveballs thrown by the Gladiators. And considering the Gladiators are emphasizing Sombra right now, this is a team that showed, even in the course of a series, while they were on stage, that they were able to adapt to some Sombra play against them. And now that they have some preparation, some film to watch of the Gladiators and the way they're playing Sombra, it may not be the most effective. So I think we're going to have to see some additional depth from the Gladiators with strategies, but that's never really been a problem for the Gladiators, has it? They've always been a team that emphasizes these one-off strategies, these wacky compositions that they execute super well. Saw that with some Reaper play, saw that with some Symmetra play. If I'm the Gladiators coming in, I think maybe I go back to some of the anti-GOATs compositions just to test Paris. Let's go back to the Symmetra. Symmetra's great because she's going to be able to really charge up her fire on a Reinhardt shield, puts a lot of pressure onto the front line. And even though Ben Best was decent, I don't think he was really dropping any jaws with his Reinhardt play, and that's going to be something weird that they're going to have to adapt to, is that much pressure right on the front if the Gladiators come back out with some Sombra. So these are all things to consider, and I think overall the greater flexibility of the Gladiators should lead them to a narrow win here, but again, they're going to be one of the top teams in this league, and I do think that Paris is probably going to end up as a top 8 team and in the stage playoffs regardless, but this matchup might be just a little bit too much to handle. I hope that helps you when it comes to taking a look at this matchup in particular, and with some expectations of how these teams might play this series out. So thanks a lot for checking out Monte's matchups.